שלום.
מצוין, מצוין.
אני שמחה לשמוע. Okay, we are moving to English now.
Excellent.
How are you? How was your day so far?
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Started out good. Hopefully it will end in the same way or even better.
Wonderful. So
Great to be here.
Thank you. You're too kind. I think we've been waiting for this conversation for like 6 months or something.
Yeah, pretty much. We've been working a lot on it and postponing it onwards, on and on and on and on and on. And so happy that we finally made it to this specific timing. And I think that everything around us kind of like is aligned with what we're going to talk right now. So I think the last 6 months actually, it's in a way even better that we postponed it because a lot happened in those last 6 months that is super relevant, I guess, to this discussion. So happy to be here 6 months after we started talking about it.
This was the brief conversation. Now we're getting to the conversation. No, I think we talked about it and we said that it's worthwhile to postpone because big news are on the way and big. So just before, not everybody knows you. So I just want to introduce you. So this is Lior Shalev and I'm excited and thrilled to speak with him because I truly believe, I'm a true believer in everything that you do. And also I think in your MTP, your massive transformative purpose and your values and your sources, it's not even source of inspiration. And I don't want to introduce you. I don't want to say anything more because I think any word that I'm going to use right now is not going to live up to the deep honor that I feel towards you. So I'm serious. I'm serious. So, why won't you tell us about yourself and what are you doing and what you're striving for? Why are you working so hard, from morning to night and trying to pursue a very, very unusual, goal?
So thank you very much, Yahli. After this introduction, I guess anything I will say will only take it down. So I would rather stay here, but I guess I have no option but to speak. I'm 43 years old, an entrepreneur by heart. And basically what drives me every single morning to do what I do as an entrepreneur in the impact arena is my 3 kids. I've got a 9-year-old, 6-year-old, and a 4-year-old. Mm-hmm. And very early after the first one was born, I understood that I wanted to do things that will live greater value for the next generations, or at least try to, okay? Brené Brown talks about it a lot, about failing greatly and trying, etc. So I believe that no matter what, we don't have the privilege not to try. So this is basically what I believe I'm trying to do. I'm trying. Days will tell whether we succeed or not, but at least we're giving it a try.
And working at it.
Really working
hard at it. Yeah. I think that's important.
Basically, when I look at the world that we're living at right now, we are at a turning point, at a very, very dangerous turning point. And we have to look at things in a different perspective, through different glasses in a way, in order to solve a lot of the issues that we have on the table today. Personally, for me, that I come from the impact world, as an entrepreneur, for me, it never made sense to work at something that I'm just earning a salary and then go and volunteer at a certain other place or an NGO where my passion is. So from a very, very, very young age, I'm trying to combine both basically into the double impact, double bottom line companies through technology and utilizing technology to change the world. Today specifically, I'm running a company.
How old were you? I'm sorry, just a second. Please tell us your story for just a second.
No problems. So I never really worked in a respectable place except for startups. I never worked in a corporate. I think it's a mentality, by the way, of people. I think there are certain people who understand how to work in bigger organizations, and there are certain people who are just good as entrepreneurs in kickstarting something and then moving it onwards. So I'm on the latter. I think. I'm a pretty bad manager, but I think I'm okay at entrepreneurship. And I started very early age, around 21, 22, basically, once I finished the army.
Out of the army? Out of the army?
After the army, I started my first degree, and then I started my first company, which basically...
Sorry, no, Lior, you didn't go for the big trip, you know? You didn't, you know, for 2 years, you know, scouting to South Africa or South America. You just started studying?
I've done a very short trip, 1 month, 1.5 months. That was good enough. And then... legs on the ground, started studying, and through that I actually built my first company, which wanted to do something in the advertising world for innovation. And through that I also implemented a lot of different kind of models of impacting society and basically allowing other players to do good while making money at the same time. That was a while ago. Almost 20 years ago, a bit more than 20 years ago. In that decade, pretty much, no one spoke about impact. No one spoke about doing good while making money at the same time. No one spoke about that space in the middle, not only maximizing revenues for shareholders, etc., from one side, which is 100% capitalization, and 100% on the other side is basically pure NGO, pure philanthropy. I think that there is a place in the middle. This is where I feel very comfortable. And back in those days in Israel, there weren't any models like that. So I had to build my own models, basically. So everything I touched ground on, basically from that age of around 23, was with trying different models and incorporating those models inside the business model itself and building a DNA of a different structure of a company.
So in a sense, you were innovative, not only in the domain and what you did in this, you know, that's category of advertising, you know, or communication with the consumers, but also with the vision that you already had, which said that there shouldn't be a separation. It should be... Exactly. Wow. How did people react? How did people react to that? I mean, this is, at that time, it was so unusual. Probably people were, well...
Yeah, so I think in Israel around 20 years ago, people went to didn't feel comfortable with this model, but the proof of the concept was on me, basically. A few years later, I've started initiating the building of an education technology company. I tried to raise funds for that in regular high-tech and startup ways, VCs. And all of those VCs basically said, you know, there's a person running the philanthropy side in our VC, why don't you talk to them? And by the way, if we want to talk about gender equality, by the way, and how things changed and shift, it was always, why don't you talk to her? Okay, which even erupted me even more in a way. So I think that was for me, okay, a pause button. I stopped everything and I said, okay, let's think about how do we do things in a different way. And I decided
Can you just before that, because I think there is a very interesting idea regarding this. You had a wonderful vision regarding this this startup, which didn't in the end, you know, you didn't pursue. But can you just tell us a little bit, because you had a wonderful vision and very unusual one, and one that people are not aware of it altogether. So can you just, for 2 minutes, talk about that?
Sure. So the startup, by the way, which is still working, the company is still working in Israel, targeted preschool education. Basically, I looked at how can we better make a better education system in Israel. Okay, because when I looked at the economic scenario, the biggest driver for economic growth is basically education. And then when you look at the education spectrum from birth till 18, for example, you understand that actually in early childhood, basically birth till 3, birth till 4, this is the highest impact per dollar that you put in that you can get as a return, as a government, by the way, as a taxpayer, okay? Anything above that, basically, you need to put more dollars in. So if we start putting a lot of effort in educating 16-year-olds, okay, we can do that, but it would cost a lot of money to do a big change. But if we take those dollars and put them in early childhood, it's a multiplier, basically, a force. Wow. And in Israel specifically, birth till 3, is privatized, 100% privatized. Just recently, it has been moved over to the government under certain regulation, etc. But until now, it was actually privatized, which basically means that the most important ages that we have and the only time frame that we have to sort of like push onwards the glass ceiling that we're putting on kids, and we are putting glass ceilings on kids. It's super important to understand that by the age of 5, the effort taken from us to change the course of that 5-year-old onwards is enormous. But birth till 5, we can still do a lot of impact. So we basically built, it's a platform that allows teachers and parents to connect in a better way, basically, and to kind of like bridging the gap between what's happening inside the education system itself and inside the home, and in that way allowing a continuation of education. So basically, if my kid learns something in preschool, why don't I know about it? Why don't I carry on that specific lesson that they learned inside my house, instead of treating those ages as babies and the teachers as babysitters?
Well, I think it's brilliant, especially, because, my nephew Rafael, and when I asked him what happened at Kindergarten, it was nice. What happened? They never give. Yeah, you can't count on the, so what did you do? We played.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think that's a brilliant idea. But so is it evolving now? This startup is evolving. I mean, is it going forward or?
Yeah, so it still has all the thresholds to pass as any education technology company in the world. It's not the easiest. When you think of the most profitable startup that you can find or build, or the easiest startup that you can build, probably education technology is at the last of the list. Okay, there's a few other easier stuff to do, I guess, in a way. From all different aspects, but this is what I'm passionate about. I truly believe that we should build and utilize technology to benefit the world, and in that way we need to look at the world in a different perspective. And yeah, we have to take those tries. So yeah, so the company is still working. It's actually working today with the Israeli education ministry.
Wonderful. Okay.
which is super, because it's exactly what we wanted. It took it a while, but at the end we did achieve it.
So when did you start it? It was how long?
That was about 10 years ago. And the company is still alive and kicking and working, doing what it was meant to do.
Funny, everything is a wonderful overnight success after 10 years, of hard work. It takes
totally
10 years for the overnight success. Yeah, it's funny. It's like it's working like it's always like this. It's you have to be a long distance runner. I mean, emotionally and cognitively and whatever. Otherwise, you can't pursue. You can't do that.
Totally. I totally agree with it. And when I talk to entrepreneurs in the early starting phase, basically, or entrepreneurs with their first company, I usually like to sort of like separate it into 2 different arenas. You need to choose what you want to do, basically. If you want to build a technology and build an exit on that, that's one strategy that you want to go. But if you want to build a company that will disrupt an industry, that's a totally different run. This is a sprint and this is a marathon, and you need a different DNA of a company. You need different people with you. You need a different team. You need a different kind of state of mind for it. So once you want to do something that is a company that is sustainable and stands by itself and actually exists after 10 years, it's a different track that you choose, instead of just building. And I'm not saying that one is better than the other, by the way. Okay, I think there are great entrepreneurs that are really good at that, and there are great entrepreneurs that are doing that excellent. My choice is to build companies. I'd rather build an industry changer, or at least try to build an industry changer, rather than incubate a technology and sell that out. Not that anything is better or worse. This is just what I'm passionate about and what I'm good at.
Can you tell me, it's not a personal question, so please, if you feel that I'm, interfering with your privacy, but does it has anything to do with your source of inspirations in general, and perhaps particular figures or?
Yeah, totally. I mean, my grandfather was the CEO and chairman of Teva Pharmaceuticals, one of the biggest Israeli companies. And basically he made it the global player that it is. And at a certain time, it was the biggest global generic pharmaceutical company in the world, I think just until recently, actually. And so yeah, totally. I mean, I learned a lot or heard a lot about industry and about Zionism and about patriotic and about building Israel first in a way and looking inside and even on the impact kind of like structure of things, basically of what happens when you build a factory in a certain area in the periphery, for example. Okay, now that's not something that you can do if you want to sell out a technology on an exit scenario. But if you do go that way and you build a company and you build a factory in a faraway place that didn't have a lot of employment, for example, until then, you make a big change for those people. You make a big change for that specific area. And so those are kind of like the lessons that I've grew up on in a way, or the talk that I've always heard, build something that is bigger than you, do it in a modest way, keep the Israeli kind of like title and be proud of it. Don't be ashamed of it in a way, okay? And say that the headquarters will be in Israel, and say that you will centralize yourself in Israel, although it's much easier to do it anywhere else. But if you live here, and if your children or grandchildren will live here, hopefully, what other option do we have?
I totally agree. And I think, and just that this is going to be the only personal note, I'm working a lot with the army and with the IDF and so forth. And I think we are not aware of how much we can't take Israel for granted. Especially if you're traveling abroad, you understand that it is a miracle, but it's our obligation. We are the grown-ups to keep it going. I mean, everyone, in the way, yesterday I went to Sderot for it's not for profit. I just, one day in my week usually is, I'm just, I see it as my civil duty.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally
agree with that. Totally agree with that. I mean, I think there are certain things in society that it's okay to say that you put ahead, and there are certain things that it's okay to say that you don't accept. For example, I don't accept that in Israel, that is such a small country, we have a geographical periphery. That's something that is not reasonable within 300, 400 kilometers side to side. Okay? No, it's not. It's a societal periphery. And that we can solve for education, and that we can solve for economy. And in order to get to a better economy, or to have that biggest growth engine for that economy, we need proper education. And I think this is kind of like the circle that I'm kind of like always moving it in a way. And it's always centralized about Israel and in Israel. I mean, I want to build the next company that will be situated in Israel, but will impact the world through Israel. And I think we can do that. Okay, we don't always have to sell out to others.
No, I totally agree. Yesterday, and then Illumina. It's the biggest gene sequencer in the world, and now there is a company which is based by Israelis, and they came with the idea that now they can do it. They're going to beat them. They are now doing it. I think Illumina is doing like in $400 whole sequence, and they're going to do it in $100. And I went and I thought, I was so shocked to see that they left Israel, and now right now they are located in the Bay Area, and they're all Israelis, and some of them are Jews. And I didn't know what I said. Why? I mean, you could have done this here. I mean, this is
totally. I think it's a great loss, because basically we're losing the best minds, the best people, and we're basically allocating them into different arenas and different areas. And in a way, everybody loses from it. Us as a society, the government loses, taxes, the local economy. No matter what you look at it, it's a lose-lose game. So I think we also need to sort of like focus sometimes on how can we grow better companies, bigger companies, technological companies, startups that will transition into industry players that will still be in Israel. And I think we don't have a lot of those at the moment, unfortunately. But hopefully, I think we're incubating a few. And hopefully our company is one of those.
Okay, let's go into it. But then I'm putting now aside, I want to speak with you. We should create, I think we should create an organization that is aiming at this, creating the next big companies here and not startups. I think it's a total, but this is something, So we will find time to talk about. No, I think it's crucial. And I think we have enough good people here to create such an organization that is assisting not startups, but big companies to be, So we'll talk about
level. Totally agree.
Yeah.
So basically today, what I'm doing is
let's talk about what we're doing now. Yeah.
I'm a co-founder and CEO of a company that grows spirulina. And basically this takes all of the pre-talk that we just had basically and puts it into place. Spirulina, just for if people don't know exactly what it is, it's a bacteria that is part of the algae family. It does photosynthesis, very similar to the algae world, but making it a bacteria or being a bacteria actually makes it much more ancient than the algae world when we look at the history. Our specific spirulina that we grow has 74% protein. It grows in the desert, basically, so we utilize 98% of our water, and we're basically the biggest or the most efficient converter of sun energy into protein.
Wow.
How
did you come up with this? I mean, a minute ago you were in education, and now you're talking with me about spirulina and about the desert.
So there were a couple of years that I understood that in Israel it would be very difficult to raise funds for impact startups, for companies who want to utilize technology for the benefit of the world while making money. It's important to say money is not a bad word, okay? Capital is super important for any company, especially for an impact company. And we need to prove, by the way, that we know to do exactly the same ROIs as any other company while doing good and benefiting the world at the same time. So it's in a way a more difficult way to choose, but I think much more beneficial. So how did I get to it? Very soon after the education technology company started, I understood that it's very difficult to raise funds. I went back to my family and said, listen, there are a couple of entrepreneurs in Israel that I know that are as crazy as I am, that have crazy ideas of changing the world and benefiting the world. And it might succeed and it might not, just as any other startup, but why don't we help them look around in being their first angel investor, basically, or pre-seed money, and basically build a small fund that will start investing only in entrepreneurs that are doing impact companies, impact startups, and that are located inside Israel and want to stay in Israel. So we started doing that. This is how we invested in a company called Algaecore. We actually invested in my partner, who is the CTO now, Baruch Dach, who is one of the best scientists I know.
And he's so modest, I saw him talking, where he's talking,
No, he's totally amazing. He's totally amazing. I didn't meet a lot of smarter people than him, and he's one of the best scientists that I've met. And he's definitely the best spirulina guy around the world.
Do you also find that the wisest people usually are the modest ones?
Yeah, actually, yeah. I mean,
not the smart, the wise, not the smart. Smart or not?
I totally agree with that sentence. Something I didn't tell you about my bio is that I actually grew up in Oxford in colleges, in Oxford University, in different colleges. So I met a lot of smart people, but I also met a lot of wise people. And I totally agree with that statement. Most of the wise people are usually more modest, I would say. So he's one of the modest guys, and he's one of the wisest guys, and he's definitely one of the smartest guys I know. And we met him 7 years ago, basically, and we invested in his idea. And 4.5 years ago, I'm just shortening the timeline really fast. I'm like pressing fast forward. 4.5 years ago, 5 years ago, basically, we've done a change in the company, and we decided to do a very big pivot. And basically, I took the role of CEO next to him. And we just built the company into a totally different direction and changed all the coordinates of what we want to do in our vision. And basically, I think that the most beautiful thing that we have in our hands is that we probably have the most sustainable food on the planet that we're working with. Now that we didn't do. That's a fact that was given already to us as entrepreneurs. Okay, spirulina, you can't find something more sustainable than that.
How come people don't know that? Sorry, you continue saying it.
So I think that part of the issue with that is actually branding the spirulina story. 99% of the spirulina, because of supply chains areas and because of consistency and regulation, 99% of the spirulina industry is actually made for powder for food supplements, okay? Which is not regulated, grown in different areas, not in a consistent way, not in any way that regulation could allow it to be in food grade. What we're actually doing is growing it fresh, basically, fresh biomass, and working with that fresh biomass. Now, it sounds like a bit of a difference, a small difference, but just to better understand the story, why don't we talk about a banana? It's a bit similar to taking a banana with its leaves, with even the tree that comes along with it, okay? And eating it all fresh, rather than pushing all that into the oven, 300 degrees Celsius, burning it all, and then using it as powder. So it initiated from a banana, but it's a totally different product.
The good things, any nutrients at all. I mean,
exactly. All the nutrients that were viable inside that product are probably less viable at the moment, especially if it's vitamins and such. Protein, minerals, downgraded, etc. There's a lot of effects for heat, but also there's a lot of effects to the sourcing, where it's grown, how it's controlled. So basically, we're the first company in the world that knows how to grow fresh spirulina as food on food grade level, which basically means that we're regulated as food industry, under the health ministry, no matter where we are, whether it's the FDA in the USA, or whether it's in Europe, or whether it's in Israel, the Israeli health ministry is checking us up just as a food company.
Wow.
It means lab tests, sending, moving along all the different analyzations that we have of any different harvest that we have, etc. It's a totally different story. So basically, I think people know spirulina through powder, which basically is kind of like an ancient mistake that was made, especially because of supply chain issues that were back in the days, that was just easier and cheaper to move from China and India spirulina as powder rather than a fresh biomass, okay? Not including that once you do it as a powder and you burn it, you actually standardize it, okay? Making it coherent from each batch to batch. What we do is we're actually growing a bacteria in 2 different remote locations in Israel, spread across 300 kilometers. We have 16 ponds that grow this spirulina inside.
Wow.
And each pond is harvested every 24 hours.
Wow.
And each harvest is identical. And this is the biggest issue in growing algae and growing a bacteria specifically, in more than 97% to any batch that came out of any pond that we have any year or any month. So basically,
how can you do that? Wow.
So a lot of technology, and this is basically consistency is like an ugly word in our world, okay? But it's the most important thing, okay? Because this is the standardization that we have, okay? Think of the dairy industry, okay? You have cows producing milk. Each cow eats differently, weighs differently, has a different metabolism, etc., and a different immune system. So the milk that will come out of each different cow is different, right?
Yeah.
And then you take all that and you pasteurize it, and this is how you standardize milk, okay?
Yeah.
For us, each cow produces exactly the same identical product over and over and over and over again. Now we do that with a lot of know-how, with a lot of IP, with a lot of trade secrets. We have the best team in the world to grow algae, but we also do that through utilizing and using a lot of technology inside the water itself that helps us basically manipulate it and control the water at any single time.
So I'm sorry, no. I have to stop you here, okay? What you're saying.
I lost you.
No, the opposite. No, I tell you what I hear, and this has to go to what I said, that the wisest people I know are the most modest one. Because what you're really saying, that you had an aim, and in order to reach this aim, you had to redesign and to reinvent and to create new methods regarding water, regarding usage of water, regarding how you measure the growth, how you keep track of the essence and of the nutrients. So what you're saying is that in order to reach this goal, you had to, so right now you have probably like, please, you don't have to answer, this is my imagination, like at least 20 to 30 new patents that you created of new methods.
So,
am I right?
So we're in those areas. But
no, I'm sorry, because you're somewhat saying, what is he saying? He says he has to use water differently. He has to choose the water differently to clean the water.
Exactly. And I think that the most important thing to understand about this story, I guess, in a way, is that we had to invent every single thing. It doesn't mean that we have to invent it from scratch. It means we can also be innovative in looking in different arenas and seeing in water sanitation, a certain technology is being used. Why don't we take that technology and do a kind of like mock-up of it and implement it differently? But yeah, totally.
No, because
we have to control everything and invent the whole idea from scratch, because no one spoke that language before.
It's in a sense like what Elon Musk is doing with Tesla, which is, vertical integration. This is what you're talking. So in the end of the day, on one hand, you can create a company which has, really an advance, like Tesla right now is between 7 to 10 years ahead of their competitors. And because if you're going to be very successful, definitely they will be competitors. But also you have already like the opportunity to spin off like 4 or 5 companies out of.
Exactly. Because you said the word, which is one of the most misunderstood words, I think, in the food tech arena. We are one of the only food tech Israeli companies that I know. And by the way, one of the only food tech companies in the world that I know that is actually vertically integrated. We control every single step of our supply chain, basically. We control the sourcing, we control the agricultural side, we understand exactly what happens in the water. We control the production, processing, harvesting, a lot of different other technologies. Every single process is a different industry and a different direction. Now, a lot of people, I think, misunderstand that sometimes as defocusing. And I would like to sort of like talk about that for a moment.
Yes, please.
I think this is exactly how you build an industry player. When Cargill was first made, I don't think anyone told them, listen, don't do 2 products at the same time. Don't focus only on one single technology. No, you need to build the whole chain. It has to work all together, okay? Now, being vertically integrated is a strategical stronghold for us because basically we don't need anybody. We control everything we need on our own. We can take it out if we want. We can do JVs if we want. We can do all kinds of different things. But we basically have the DNA and the structure and the infrastructure to build one of the most disruptive industry players in the world, because this is the only way you build a company.
Yeah, I totally agree. But also just, and we'll go just, sides, but what you're saying about the water, because we know that we are going right now, doesn't matter that we are, that we have all the oceans and so right now, when we're talking about good water, drinking water, we are in a shortage. We have right now 2 million people who are dying every year because of, and most of them are children under the age of 5. This is a horrible situation. You have in a world which is, we're talking about abundance. Let's talk for, on the basics. So
exactly. I think at the end of the day, when we look at spirulina and our specific spirulina, the way we grow it, and I'll sort of like dive into it for 2 seconds just to talk about sustainability.
Yeah, of course.
And climate. We live in a super disruptive world at this moment, and this age and at this time, we need to make, I think, one of the harshest decisions that we ever made as civil society, in a way, on how we treat the world. And I think that we maltreated the world in a very, very, very harsh way. Okay, we for example, we're growing food in different locations in the world and ruining rainforests at the same time. Why? Because we want, as civil society, cheap food. There is a cost for that food. This is what I'm trying to say. We can't ignore what it does to us as human beings, but we can't ignore at the same time what it does to the planet. So until now, we were only talking about food, in general terms. Today, we need to look how it is for how it actually impacts us, okay? So when we grow our spirulina, for example, it has 90% bioavailability, which basically means that what you eat stays inside your body, okay? When we're talking about proteins, not all of those proteins stay in your body the same way. The same story with iron, the same story with different nutrients that we have, okay? So this is for us as human beings. We need to talk about not only tasty food, we've already ticked that, okay? We need to make tasty food that is actually beneficial and healthy for us and doesn't ruin our bodies, okay? Next step, we need to make healthy food, tasty food, that is also beneficial for the world. And I think that this is one of the biggest challenges that we're standing as a world society today in front of. You know, when you look around at what's happening on the climate arena, you know, the answer is already there. We know exactly where we're heading, and unless we change our ways very fast, we won't be able to do a lot. Okay, so at the moment we're talking for the next 10 years, we will need another planet the size of our world planet in order to grow the amount of proteins we will need to feed all of the future society. Now, last time I checked, we didn't have another planet like ours. Okay, not yet. Not yet. Hopefully within the next 10 years.
Yeah.
But just in case we don't find one,
you're totally right.
We need to have those solutions.
And also we love Mother Earth. So, you know, sometimes when I fall in love, and well, with George Church, I'm totally in love for about 10 years, you know, I'm willing to go, you know, probably who is George Church, I don't have to tell you, but to our listeners is the most, I don't know, bioscience, the most, I think he should have had, you know, because he was creating the CRISPR technology. Unbelievable. And he was so nice. And he said, you know, he's a beautiful person. So I'm willing to go and scratch his, George, if you're hearing me, I'm willing to do the windows for a year just to be around you. But he was talking about the same problem. And he said that we keep talking about changing the transportation, which is wonderful, but this is not the problem, because now we have 7 billion people, but we have 93 billion kettles or whatever that we are growing, which are taking, you know, most of the water.
Most of the land.
Yeah.
Most of the land.
Yeah. And it's unbelievable that we're still doing it. You know, it's just, you know, you see the tsunami coming and we're still doing it. So
totally.
How are people reacting when you come to, you know, and talk about this as an alternative and you explain to them? I haven't been in any of your pitch, but I imagine that you're taking, because the spirulina is, you know, it's the material, the raw material, but this you can spread all over to so many products and so many usage. So totally. How do people react to that? I mean.
So I think people react amazingly once they hear the pitch, basically that it's one of the most sustainable foods that you can find on the planet. You need to understand, we basically use 98% of our water are recycled. So we're a proper circular economy. We use a very small terrain. We don't need a lot of land. We multiply the biomass every 24 hours. So basically each pool is being harvested and multiplies itself on the biomass, on the spirulina, every 24 hours.
Wow.
So I don't know a lot of agricultural crops that grow every 24 hours and double themselves. So we do it in the desert because this is where we get the best results. Sun energy, we don't need to heat anything. We know the spirulina thrives at 65 Celsius air temperature, about 40 Celsius water temperature, really, really extreme weathers, okay? Not only that, we take 5 kilos of CO2 and produce 1 kilo of food out of it.
Wow.
So no matter what you look at it, or from each different direction, it's a proper circular economy.
Wow.
And this is the scalable solutions that we can bring to the table as alternative proteins. Now, we won't be the only player in the world, yeah? There's room for everybody. But hopefully we will be one of the best.
No, I'm sure there is no question about it. I mean, you know, and I'm also using your product, you know, to be totally honest, for, you know, for a long time already. So, you know, I'm biased. I'm putting it on the table, and you know, I'm every morning I start with them. But I want to ask you, when we are talking about going back to the business side for a second, because what you're talking about, I get it. At least I get it delivered frozen.
Yeah.
So when we are talking, you know, creating an Israeli international global company. What does it mean? Because are you going to produce everything here, and how you're going to ship it over? What is?
Excellent question. At the end of the day, because we're vertically integrated, so there are a lot of parts, okay? So it's just a decision of how many parts we will live inside Israel. At the moment, the desert gives us the best results, okay? Yes, we can grow it in the Arizona desert. Yes, we can do it in different deserts. But at the moment, there is no reason to do that. When a very big deal will come over to the table and we won't have enough space in the Israeli desert, or it won't make sense on the unit economics, we can do it in different locations and control it still from Israel, meaning the team and the headquarters will still be centered here. The IP will be here. The knowledge base will be here. The know-how will be here, and the business will be here. And I can grow it from here in Africa. Whether there will be 100 greenhouses in Africa, which I would love to do, okay? They can be controlled through long distance through Israel. So on the business side, there isn't an issue on that. Now, regarding the frozen or chilled, we are moving over to the chilled arena.
Really?
We have,
right.
yeah.
What's the reason? Oh, I'd like to hear about that. Yeah.
So specifically because when you enter the supermarket and you look at the frozen arena as opposed to the chilled arena, it's different cycles. Okay. Most of the consumers are always concentrating either on the bread and that area, and on the yogurts, milk, etc. On the chilled
We're talking
area.
about Israel right now. You're talking about Israel.
We're talking, but general consumer perspectives and behavioral inside supermarkets. Okay.
Okay.
The turnarounds inside the chilled arena inside supermarkets are much higher than in the frozen area. Okay. So this is one of the first things. Second, logistics. We want to solve that logistic issue as well. Also, I think that the spirulina can give amazing results also on the chilled arena. Actually, we are now working on a product, which is a fish analog, a fish and meat analog. We managed to develop a salad.
Hold on. Before that, I just want to ask you before we go now to the fish, and especially, this was a hint, the way I put this is the color I put especially for this. But before that, may I ask, but what about the life, the shelf life? Because when you're moving from frozen, so how does that impact the economies and the
unit economics? Yeah. So basically, it depends on the final product, the shelf life that it will have. When we're talking about frozen areas, we have about 2 years of shelf life, no problem. When we're talking about the chilled areas, it can move between 7 days to 28 days that we have chilled. We have different products. It depends what comes inside this product, how it's being worked, what other nutrients are inside, are there any preservatives or not, etc. So we have different reactions in different line of products, okay? But at the end of the day, the cycle will be much shorter, of course, once we enter the chilled area. But I think that one of the most interesting things for us is that without even putting an emphasis on it, we're actually totally moving out of the agricultural world of tomatoes, cucumbers, and fruits into, the dairy, alternative dairy, kind of like chilled freezer or refrigerator. And this is and this is a maneuver for us from being an agricultural product to being an actual food product.
Well, now, and I thought they're going to move into superpower, because for me, spirulina is a superpower.
It is as well. You should. I should have brought Baruch over. He's 2 meters high, 2 meters wide.
I think we'll have to have another meeting together, because I don't think we're going to finish everything today. But yeah, I'm sorry. It was so interesting, so I had to ask. But please use my color to present the subject. Yeah.
Basically, as a lot of good eureka moments. Basically, we had a science experiment that we tried to get to something. It all got messed up, basically, and we got a different result from what we wanted. But what we did get, actually, is an amazing thing. We got a texturized chunk made 100% out of spirulina that actually moves and works and has the bite of whether it's chicken breast or fish, very similar to that. It actually works a bit like plastilina. Okay, so you can have a bigger chunk, you can have a smaller one, you can have it carpaccio schnitzelized, or you can have it as a kind of like alternative beef. But we actually managed to take that biomass and make a chunk out of it. Now, making a chunk of it is very simplified, okay? At the end of the day, what you have inside is actually we are actually polymering the fibers inside in a certain way, very similar to what cultured meat is doing. But what we're doing is without any GMO and without using any animal-based product. So it's an analog fish or analog meat. We've shown that.
Me, I'm a vegan.
Yeah.
So this is a product like for people like me who are not willing to eat animals in any form, and not even cultured meat, which is take off the cells of.
Exactly. It's 100% spirulina at the moment. And the beauty of it, we went to one of the biggest multinational players in Europe with it, and they said, listen, this is one of the most amazing breakthroughs that we've seen so far.
Wow.
Because no one managed to do a chunk that is made almost 100% out of one single ingredient. And you need to understand that it has almost double the amount of protein you would find in animal or fish based.
Wow.
Okay, and it has all the nutrition values that spirulina brings to the table: iron, vitamins, minerals, etc. Okay,
not any downside.
No downside. It's a clean product. No antibiotics. No leftovers that you might find in fish, for example, that are being fished in the sea, etc. So it's clean out of everything, and it's a single ingredient. Now that's a game changer.
Wow.
But there was only one problem. They said the color. You can't sell a green color chunk and call it meat or fish. You can do it in alternative dairy, but you can't do it in alternative meat or fish. We said, fine, we'll work on that. Wow. We went back to the lab, and our team managed to basically find a decolorization process inside the spirulina that allows the native pigments. And the color that you're wearing at the moment is a native pigment inside spirulina that the green usually takes over.
Wow.
But we managed to sort of take out the green and allow those pigments to come out. And then the amazing thing
you reveal the true nature of spirulina, which is orange.
Beta carotenes. Exactly. Now, not only that, we actually now today know how to produce every single color you would want. So basically, the two main technologies that we're working on today, if you tell me you want an analog crocodile meat, which has the coordinate colors of X, Y, Z, we will know how to produce the identical color and the identical texture for that. Now, the product has no smell or taste.
Hold on. What you're saying right now, hold on. I'm sorry. I have to stop here. It's so amazing. So what you're saying, you started with the kind of a superfood, but now you're on your way to disrupt at least two of the most polluting and dangerous food industry, which is the meat industry and the fish industry. And also you can do it, I imagine, you don't have to answer, you can do it also, I think, to the chicken industry, which we know it's a horrible one. And also when we are talking about eggs and milk. So now you're going to have not one company, but you're going to have like six companies.
No, a lot of spin-offs.
That's what I'm thinking. And besides all the, I think you're probably three companies regarding the water, because I think there you're not talking about it, but I'm sure. No. I think we should speak about it because this is a crucial issue for the world as well. But so it's amazing. So right now you're creating a pathway to disrupt at least 4 to 5 different food industries. Am I right?
Yeah. And we're starting through the fish industry, which I think is heavily polluted.
Why did you choose the fish industry before?
So I think fish, in the meat industry, it's a bit crowded already with the cultured solutions. In the fish industry, it's a much more difficult arena because we're talking about different texture, and we need to really build like a painter in a way inside the lab, the different perspectives of how the final product can be shown or can be grown in a way. So it's a much more difficult area. But on the upside, actually, on the cost of fish is a much more reasonable cost for us as a startup to introduce products, which could be, for example, an egg and chicken are very, very cheap today. Okay. So it's very difficult to compete in those arenas with a company that grows at the moment 50 tons. When we grow 5,000 tons, we can compete with chicken and egg, no problem. But at the moment, we can compete with fish already with our capacity today, which basically allows us to introduce a product that is competitive, that is actually better, superior to the native animal-based product. It brings to the table better scale, better capacity, better organoleptics, better nutrients inside. And you come already at an introductory price or future introductory price that we know today that we can stand with the local capacity that we have.
Wow. So I have three questions, if I may, from the business side. First of all, does it mean that you're going to create this, factories or, any kind of here in Israel, meaning, so it's going to be in the desert, like near Beersheba, or so there are going to be more, working opportunities for Israelis, which is important for all of us. Am I right?
Yeah,
so this is
totally.
And now I have a question regarding the branding, because probably, I'm just, I'm playing scenarios in my head, and right now I'm the chief innovation in Walmart, or in I don't know, Whole Food, which is more Joe Trader, whatever. Okay, and a Wegman, whatever. I'm sitting there and I'm saying, this Israeli startup. I'm very, but this, because they're small enough, I'm going to cut with them a deal that will give them, will ensure that they have a cash flow. But I want to be it under my brand name of my local or whatever. Or, so I think this is a big business dilemma, because on one end you can have the cash.
Yeah.
And
totally,
on the other
totally.
end, so can you, if it's okay that I'm asking, I'm just putting myself.
Yeah. I mean, so strategically speaking, for example, today we're working on specifically smoked salmon made out of spirulina. Tomorrow, we can work on making beef analogs of antricots or whatever. Okay, we can choose what we want to do. We can do patties, burgers made 100% out of spirulina, unlike other vegan burgers that are out there that are made out of more than a dozen different ingredients. We can do it with one single ingredient.
Wow.
So our strategic approach at the moment is actually working and closing joint development projects with specific companies on specific products. So, for example, for the smoked salmon, I can say that out loud because it already came out. IFF, which is the second biggest, I think, fragrance and taste players in the world, actually are working with us on producing this smoked salmon, okay? And they were actually merged into DuPont, which is the biggest ingredient company in the world today.
Wow.
So they have a stronghold in this specific product because we would want them to take that product into the market. Now, we know what we're good at and we know what we're not good at. We are the best spirulina growers in the world, and our spirulina is probably one of the best protein alternatives that you can find on earth. End of sentence. That said, we're not the best marketers. We're not the best salespeople. So we're not a B2C company. We're a B2B company. But we're a B2B company that knows how to work with ingredient companies, but also knows how to work with Walmart and Whole Foods. So if they would want us to make them a product under their brand, we're totally agnostic to that. We have no ego on the branding side because we're not approaching it that on the business arena through that approach or through that channel. Okay, we know exactly where we stand, and we know how to maneuver inside the B2B arena itself. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking. So if I would have been in your shoes, I thought I would create connection with Strauss, because this is also a proud Israeli global company. And I don't know Ofra, but I've been working with my people, and I think it's an amazing company. And and she has a vision the same like yours, creating. Totally. So I'm just saying I would go, because she has this, she has a wonderful coffee and she has Sabra. So I would go and I said, let's go together, proud Israelis going to the world and creating, a new platform for food for the world.
We're totally there. We're totally there. We're talking.
I'm sorry if I'm asking questions.
No, it's all right. We're talking to all the different players on that level in Israel, but also to the multinationals, because we understand also that we need to bring sometimes the business from outside into Israel in a way.
And I also think the big companies. I've been working in the food industry for a long time, also with global and international companies, not only here. And I can say that Unilever is wonderful. You know what Paul Polman did with with the MTP, and it's unbelievable. And Coca-Cola is moving totally in different direction, and Nestle. And I mean, I think may I just be a little bit disruptive for a second?
Sure.
I'm deep into the health and longevity and rejuvenation. And so I was thinking, for example, do you think there is worthwhile learning about, I believe that right now there is a new generation which is being born. People are talking about it. I called it the fifth act. It's people from the age of 80 to 120, because this is it. It's happening. We know that. So I'm just thinking, first of all, do you think we can create, special, I would say, options of products for, this kind of generation, which probably needs?
Totally. I mean, when we look at what we have under our hands and on the spirulina as a product, there's a lot of areas where we didn't even start touching yet, okay? A lot of health areas that we know that spirulina could be very, very, very good for. For example, we were the only company in Israel that won from the chief scientist a grant to work on a solution for corona that was actually tested in 2 corona wards in Israel with pure spirulina. Okay. Now that's a game changer. Our focus today is food, but we do understand that there are different attributes that we can use spirulina into. And I totally believe that our food should be healthier and should sort of like interact with those areas. I mean, we can't look at food as only something that we consume without having any benefits. And I think that the whole world is moving towards those areas. In a way, look at what's happening on the functional food arena, okay? This is a really interesting arena for us, which basically says, we don't care too much about taste or size. We care about what's inside the food. It has to be functional for our bodies. And I think that this is where the world is kind of like moving towards. We're moving towards functional food, healthy food, tasty food. It has to be tasty. If it's not tasty, it just won't stay on the table, okay? But we're definitely moving towards different functions that we will start looking in our foods. And I think that in that world, the positioning that we have at the moment is amazing. And this is kind of like where we're moving.
Yeah, I have tons of other questions. I know you have to go. So just, first of all, will you be willing to meet me again? And we have another discussion about, okay, brilliant, wonderful. Because I thought about, the gut by health, because I think there is a lot of work. And also, do you know about, there is a new interest right now with the skin, because people are not aware that the skin is the biggest organ and it's keeping us healthy. And I think about usage of spirulina to heal
definitely cosmetics, health issues, totally.
Yeah. But before we continue, first of all, if people want to contact you or learn more about the company, how can they do that? If people want to assist or perhaps, have any idea or one corporation, as you said right now, or whatever, how can they reach you? If you can tell them. And this is the first thing. And the second, looking 10 years into the future, where do you want to see the company and yourself?
So I'll start from the second question.
Whatever.
In 10 years' time, I would like to see our company Simply Good as one of the biggest protein alternative companies in the world, one of the most disruptive ones. We don't have to be the biggest one, okay? But we have to be a very distinct player that has a role, and that when we say something, the industry listens. This is where we want to be, to bring the whole sustainability talk, to bring the climate change arena talk, to bring all those talks inside to the mainstream of the food industry. That has to be said, hasn't been disrupted yet on those arenas, okay? It's just being tackled at the beginning right now. So I would want to be in that position with the company 10 years from now. And how to contact me? The best way to contact me personally is through LinkedIn. I'm always there. I'm always connected. Just ping me, and I would love to start a talk on whatever the subject is. That's on that side. Also, you can find us on simplygood.com. with a double I in the middle, which is double impact, by the way.
Wow, I didn't know that. I was wondering.
We kind of like pushed it inside in a way.
Wow, that's brilliant.
Yeah, so you can find us also on the website and approach us through there.
Okay. Would it be okay if I'll call you and we'll set another, because I think we didn't cover, and if you want to bring Baruch?
Sure, would love to, but this time, not half a year from now. We need to both to be shorten the time.
I'm going to call you now. We'll set it for 2 weeks from now.
Done deal.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Here. Thank you so much for having me, Yahli. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a real pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.